Howdy, howdy. My name is John, and this video is celebrating 5 years on Booktube. That's right, 5 years ago, I posted my very first video. Man, the world was a very different place 5 years ago. I've been thinking a lot about what has happened over the 5 years. Got a lot of great memories. Got a few rotten ones, but that's life. I'm really grateful for the people that I've been able to meet, other booktubers, and a handful of people who just comment on my videos that don't actually have channels of their own. I wish I could name names and say everybody that has been meaningful to me over the past 5 years, but that would just be a long list of names, and I'm afraid I'd leave people out. Just some, I'm just not gonna say names, but just know that if you're one of the people watching this video, I'm very grateful for you being in my life these past 5 years. I know I haven't been able to post a lot here lately, and unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to watch other booktubers as well. Really kind of enjoyed that early in these past 5 years, where I had time to read, I had time to watch a lot of booktube and interact with a lot of people, and now I don't have the time to do as much as I used to, and I do miss it. So just know if I haven't shown up in the comments of one of your videos lately, it's just because I've not had time to watch. I thought a fun way to celebrate uh, this anniversary is to actually give a brief review of all of the 5-star books that I've read while I've been on BookTube. It's actually a list of, I think, about 49 books. Um, Now, I'll go ahead and give you a spoiler. You probably already know who my number one author is. It is Piers Anthony. Um, but if you feel up to it, take a guess and leave a comment on how many Piers Anthony books do you actually think are in uh, this list. How many Piers Anthony books have I read over the past 5 years that I've given 5 stars to? And then while you're down there, why not take a guess as to who you think the number two author is? That one might be a little bit more of a surprise. We'll see. My first BookTube 5-star read was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This book was written by a man who, prior to World War II, was working on his theory about psychiatry. And because he was Jewish, he got some real world experience with those theories in a concentration camp. This book doesn't get into the gory details of his experience in the concentration camp, but he did watch a lot of men just give up. But because he had something that was driving him, uh, he managed to survive, and he noticed other people who had a reason to live, and that they were the ones that had the will to keep going. The next book is One Step Apart by Joan Oppenheimer. Now, this book was a reread for me. I've read it many times over the years. Um, and it's one of those books where one of the main characters I really strongly identify with. And it's just really, when I started this channel, it was, I'd kind of conceived it as me reading a lot of the books from my past, uh, and seeing how I felt about them, partly to avoid having to buy books. Of course, we know how well that turned out. The next 5-star read was The Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean Auel. Several months prior to starting my channel, I'd been talking with one of my uncles, and we started to talk about this book. It was a book that I'd read in high school, but not since. And because he had enjoyed the series so much, he actually lent me his copy so I could reread it. And I wound up reading the rest of the series as well. But the first book is the only one I gave 5 stars to. The next book is Iron John, A Book About Men by Robert Bly. So Iron John is one of the Grimm fairy tales, and Bly takes this fairy tale and kind of explains the hidden symbolism in the fairy tale and about how boys become men. Again, this was a reread for me, um, but I very much enjoyed my reread of it. It's definitely a book that if you're either a man or you have a man in your life that you really care about, it's a good read. The next book is Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. Again, another reread from my youth. This actually was kind of assigned reading to me by a teacher who kind of noticed what I was reading. This was, shortly after I had started to read fantasy and science fiction, and she recommended this book to me, and I'm really glad she did. It's a thought-provoking book. The next book is Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. Now, this book was not a reread. It was the first time I'd read it. I actually found a copy in a thrift store, and the book got a lot of buzz when it came out. So it was definitely a book that I got a lot out of by reading. The next book is Twice as Good: Condoleezza Rice and Her Path to Power by Marcus Mabry. Again, another book that I found a used copy for, and I really enjoyed this biography. I think it stops somewhere along about the time that Obama came into power. Um, but it covers her youth and then her early work and then rising to become the Secretary of State. The next book is Traitor's Blade by Sebastien de Castell. This is actually a book that I participated in a read along with on Booktube. So it's kind of the first book that I read because of Booktube. All of the books prior, I'd gotten recommendations from somewhere other than Booktube, or it was a reread. Um, and I really enjoyed the first book. I honestly I enjoyed the rest, the other three in the series as well, but none of them got to the 5 star level. The next one is Animal Farm by George Orwell. Again, another book that I managed to find a good used copy for. It was the first time I had read that book as well. It's a brilliant book. It's one of the rare books that is social commentary, um, but the story is actually works really well just as a story. Social commentary the social commentary doesn't get in the way of the storytelling, and that is quite frankly something that I rarely find in books. In fact, a lot of books kind of ruin the story in favor of this social commentary, and it's not something I enjoy reading. But Animal Farm gets it right. Now, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that my favorite author is Piers Anthony. Well, we are to the first one. This is Split Infinity. It's the first book in his Apprentice Adept series. Again, it was a reread for me. It was a book that I'd read when I was a teenager originally. And I've read it several times over the past few years, but that was probably the first time I'd read it in a good 20 or 30 years. And I will go ahead and add that the second book in the series, I also gave 5 stars to. Again, there's 7 in the total series, and I think the rest were either 3 or 4 stars for me. The next book is Moneyball: The Art of Winning an Unfair Game by Michael Lewis. This book was also turned into a movie, which I watched after reading the book. And it was just a fascinating look how uh, one man in particular and a baseball team. The baseball team really didn't have a budget for the high star players, so they started to look at stats and kind of figure out the players where they could get the best bang for the buck, and it helped the team to become competitive. And I really enjoyed how this book was written, and just all of the details that actually came about, and the different people that were involved in this story. The next book is War of the Twins. This is the second book in the Dragonlance Legends trilogy. I read this with a real life friend of mine. Again, another book that I had read previously, but it had been many years before. It won't be the last time you hear Margaret Weis's name on this list, but it will take me a little while before I get to it again. This is like none of the original trilogy got 5 stars from me. And then the other two in the Legends trilogy also got 4 stars, but the other two in the Legend trilogies are very good books as well. I mean, they're nearly 5 star quality as well. The next book is A Painted House by John Grisham. This is another book that my uncle had recommended to me. I found a good used copy and read it and really enjoyed it. The reason my uncle had recommended it is because that book really reminded him of his childhood when he was growing up. The next book is Coop, The Memoirs of America's Family Doctor by C. Everett Koop. So when I was a teenager, C. Everett Koop was a Surgeon General, and he became quite well known for that role. Um, and so I found reading his autobiography very entertaining. The next book is The Positronic Man by Isaac Asimov and Robert Silverberg. Now, this is the novel length adaptation of Asimov's original short story called The Bicentennial Man. Really enjoyed both stories. The Positronic Man kind of takes the original short story and expands it out, adds some details. Just a really enjoyable book. The next book on this list is I, Claudius by Robert Graves. I originally read this book in high school, and I was watching another booktuber mention the early Roman emperors, and I remembered this book and was able to kind of do a group read of this book. Really enjoyed the book. The next book is my third Piers Anthony book, Firefly. Firefly is a standalone. It's kind of Piers Anthony's foray into the horror genre. Um, I found this book really fascinating. I think people who normally read horror are probably going to find it kind of on the light side of horror, whereas people who are normally reading Piers Anthony, it's definitely darker than his normal fare. I know this book is really divisive. It's one of those that people either seem to love or hate. So it's definitely an odd book. One of the oddest Piers Anthony books that I've ever read. The next book is Basic Economics, A Common Sense Guide to the Economy by Thomas Sowell. Another reread. My brother originally recommended the book to me. I read this book with a real life friend of mine, and it's really a great guide to understanding economic principles. The language is very simple, very down to earth. It doesn't use a lot of jargon or anything like that. It's definitely um, written so that anybody who does not have an economics degree can understand it. The next book is the fourth Piers Anthony book, and it is Skeleton Key. It is one of the Xanth books. Um, and this was the first Xanth book that I had given 5 stars to in quite a long stretch of the series. Really think Piers Anthony has kind of done some of his best work in the last several novels that he's done. Now, the last, I think 3 or 4 I've only given 4 stars to, but there was a stretch where he was putting out some 5 star reads. We'll get to a few more later into the list. The next book is Brothers in Arms. This is by Margaret Weiss and Don Perrin, one of the rare Dragonlance books that she co-authored with someone other than Tracy Hickman. This is the second book in the Raceland Chronicles. And I really just enjoyed this book. It's an excellent look at the kind of early adulthood of Raceland in the events prior to the original Chronicle. The next book is The Greatest Generation by Tom Brokaw. This book made a huge splash when it came out. It's a kind of mini biography of about 5 or 6 people who were of the World War II generation, basically born in the somewhere around 1905 to 1924, somewhere in that time period. Basically, the people who came of age during World War II or the Depression. My father was actually at the tail end of that generation, so it was really fascinating for me to kind of read the stories of some of his cohort, and see the similarities in his story and theirs. Next, I'm going to talk about 2 of the Dragonlance Preludes novels, and both of these are authored by Mary Kirchhoff. One of them is about Flint. The other one is about Tasselhoff. And basically, there are 6 books in these series. Each one covers one of the companions of the Dragonlance and kind of focuses on their adventures in the 5 years prior to the events of the Dragonlance Chronicle. These 2 novels were easily the most enjoyable of the 6. Next, we have another Piers Anthony Xanth novel. This is A Tryst of Fate. Next on my list is the landmark Julius Caesar. This is basically Julius Caesar's kind of autobiography. It's his basic journals or war reports of his campaigns in France, Spain, and Britain prior to kind of taking leadership of Rome itself. The Landmark edition has a lot of good maps and commentary, and it's a really excellent read. This was actually another group read on Booktube, and that enhanced my reading of this book. All right, next is 2 of Piers Anthony's autobiographies. He wrote one that covers his age up to about 50, and then the next one covers about the next 10 years of his life. I really enjoyed reading both of these. I mean, it's funny, neither one of these were rereads, and really, I'd only really kind of knew of Piers Anthony's personal life from his author notes in the Xanth series. So, I found these 2 books really fascinating. The next book is Electric City, The Lost History of Ford and Edison's American Utopia by Thomas Hager. This was a book that I actually found in the library in the new book section, and Thomas Edison and Henry Ford actually kind of developed the city from scratch, and tried to get this city to kind of be a modern day utopia. And the book kind of chronicles why it failed, and it's just a very fascinating piece of American history that I really didn't have any idea actually existed. The next book is The Grasping Root by Margaret Pinard. Now, Margaret is a fellow booktuber. She also writes books of her own. This book happens to be the second in a trilogy. This book had a character that I really strongly identified with. It's definitely the best of the books of Margaret's that I have read. The next book is Soldiers Live by Glenn Cook. Now, this is the final book in the Black Company series. Black Company was another group read that I did with other booktubers. Again, like I said, this is the last book in the series. It's the only one I gave 5 stars to. There were a number of 4-star reads in there, though. Just it's a very kind of this is a series that I'd actually never heard of prior to joining BookTube. It was written mostly in the 80s, and definitely it's military. It is military fantasy, so you kind of need to enjoy that type of fantasy before actually um, kind of checking the series out. And mind you, I actually happen to enjoy military fantasy. I mean, several of the books I've already mentioned, the two Dragonlance books, the Greatcoats first book. Next on my list is The Big Book of Peanuts, All the Daily Strips from the 1950s by Charles M. Schulz. So this covers the Peanuts comic from its very creation, so the earliest comics, and then all the ones in the 1950s. So every single daily comic strip is in this collection. It's a big book. Uh, I thoroughly enjoyed reading that. I have the one from the 60s and the 70s that for some reason I haven't gotten to yet. All right, so next I'm going to talk about some more Piers Anthony books. Surprise, surprise. This is books 2, 3, and 4 of the Mode series. Fractal Mode, Chaos Mode, and Do-On Mode. The first book I only gave 4 stars to, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. Books 2 and 3 were rereads for me, but again, thoroughly enjoyed those rereads. Book 4 was new to me, and it made the perfect conclusion to the series. It didn't really earn its fourth it didn't really earn a 5-star rating until the very end, but the ending kind of sealed the deal. The next 2 books are the first 2 books in the Harriet the Spy series. Now, the first book, Harriet the Spy, was another reread for me. It's another one of those books that I've read many times, starting when I was a teenager. Even though the main character is a girl, I still kind of strongly identified with kind of some of the struggles that she went through. Second book, not didn't really struggle with the main kind of plot line in the second book. It's called The Long Secret. I'll leave it to you to discover what that actually is. Um, but it made something that I have never experienced and really kind of made it come alive. Now, there is a third book in this series called Sport, and it didn't quite live up to the first 2. I think I gave it 4 stars, but I may have given it 3. But definitely another strong read. The next book is Mystic and Rider by Sharon Shin. This is the first book in the 12 Houses series. It's the only one that I've read thus far in the series. It's actually a recommendation that I got from a couple other booktubers, and I just thoroughly enjoyed this. The 2 main characters, they're older protagonists. They're in their kind of 30s. There are some younger ones that are there as well, but it's just excellent characters, an excellent plot, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. At some point, I'm going to reread this book and continue on in the series. The next book is a biography of JFK. It covers his early years by Frederick Logville. This was a buddy read with a one booktuber in particular who has very much influenced how my channel has gone over the past 5 years, including some of the decorations that you are currently enjoying. The book itself, fantastic read. I mean, it's really detailed. Um, this is a book where you definitely want to read the notes because it gives a lot more kind of background information, not just the sources. The next book is another Isaac Asimov. This is Pebble in the Sky. It's the third book in his Galactic Empire series. Actually, early on in my kind of booktube life, I read one of the books, one of the Foundation prequels, And in the beginning of it is a list of kind of his extended universe. And so I kind of went back and kind of read through that list. Um, so Positronic Man is the first book of that list that got a 5 star. Pebble in the Sky is the second one of that list that gets a 5 star read from me. The next book is Neil Patrick Harris, Choose Your Own Autobiography by Neil Patrick Harris. This book is actually written as one of the Choose Your Own Adventure books that were popular when I was a kid. Now, you can actually read this book front to back, and it roughly goes in chronological order. It's just that there are places where there are kind of fake endings that kind of come into the play as you read the story. So, if you happen to make a wrong decision in Neil's life, then you will find some kind of humorous endings to those decisions. The next book is Bring the Jubilee by Ward Moore. I also reread another book by Ward Moore called Greener Than You Think. That book was a reread, and it led me to Bring the Jubilee. This book is probably Ward Moore's most famous work. It's actually a piece of alternate history where the North loses the American Civil War, and it really kind of focuses on the after effects of the North losing that war. And we follow one gentleman, kind of just his normal everyday life. The next book is Engineering in Plain Sight, an illustrated field guide to the constructed environment by Grady Hillhouse. It covers both civil engineering and electrical engineering, and kind of gives you pictures of the equipment that is both used in these professions, uh, both as products and the equipment that helps to construct. Definitely, if you're either curious about these fields, uh, definitely worth a look. If you know someone who is in high school and considering an engineering career, definitely a good book to give to them. The next two books are books in the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. The first one is the first book, just called Foundation. Foundation is a series of about 5 short stories that are all set in the same universe. Only two of the short stories actually cover the same person. But personally, I found it fascinating. I know not everybody does because, they kind of want more of a one unified story. But as long as you don't mind kind of the format of the storytelling, uh, it for me was very, very interesting. The next one is the fourth book in the series. Um, so it was written many years later after the original trilogy had been written, and really even after the two prequels had been written as well. But this follows several people who are actually looking for the historic Earth because it's so far into the future that the planet of humanity's origin has kind of been lost to myth. The next book is actually the final book in Asimov's extended universe. It's called An Eternity. It is a time travel story, so if you enjoy time travel stories, definitely a book you want to check out. The next book is Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim. This is another book that I have read many times before. The version that I have is actually a movie cover version of The Secret of Nim that came out in the early 80s. The next two books I actually listened to on audio again. The first one is The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. This book, of course, got really popular when it came out, and finally got around to reading it. And then the last one is Extreme Ownership: How the U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko Willink and Leif Babbitt. Both of those men were actually in the Navy SEALs They saw combat during the Iraq War, and it takes episodes from their time in Iraq and uh, shows leadership principles that they learned. And so, it shows both some negative examples and positive examples of these principles in action. This book is actually narrated by both men, and that added to my enjoyment of the book. So, just in case you were interested in some stats, Piers Anthony, of course, leads the list. He had a total of 10 books. Isaac Asimov came in second place with 5 books. And then there are 2 authors with 2 books apiece. One of them is Margaret Weiss. The other is Mary Kirchhoff. So we get to round out end the list with some Dragonlance books. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being with me on this 5-year journey that I've been on.